Have you ever stopped to think about how a D&D curse could test your character's actual ethics? Not just their stats? Because let's be honest, the typical curse like an annoying itching rash or maybe a -1 to attack rolls, that stuff usually just fades away, right? A quick spell, maybe a trip down to the local temple, and poof, it's basically gone. But when curses really snake their way into the very marrow of a character's morals, that's when the whole table goes quiet. That's when players lean in. They're really invested. So today we're diving deep into how these curses can morph from some mechanical pain into, well, a powerful engine for your narrative. And we're drawing some great inspiration from LitRPG Reads.
That is so true. The second a curse stops being just a stat penalty and becomes a genuine moral quandary, the whole feel of the game shifts. These aren't just penalties you can kind of shrug off later. They're really storytelling invitations. They demand that the character who's cursed has to wrestle with who they fundamentally are, what they really value, and exactly what they might be willing to sacrifice. It's right there in those really intense moments that roleplay just blossoms and the dice suddenly feel heavier, because the stakes are just so much more profound.
Okay, so when we talk about moral curses, what's the actual core thing that lifts them beyond just a typical, debuff? What makes them different from just having bad luck?
Well, it's precisely that they don't just ding your character sheet. They infect hearts. They infect bonds between players. A -1 to strength might make combat harder, sure, but a curse that makes you genuinely question your loyalty to your friends, or maybe demands you do something cruel just to survive, that's what builds stakes that the usual remove curse spell just cannot scrub away. It's like the example of the rogue's blade that hungers for betrayal. It gets stronger every time the wielder tricks an ally. I mean, no restoration spell on Earth can undo the frayed trust that causes at the table. The damage isn't just like hit points. It's to their soul, their actual relationships.
That's a really powerful point. Does that almost make the remove curse spell kind of irrelevant in these situations? It sounds like the curse itself becomes its own sort of quest, a living, nagging thing humming under every word spoken.
Completely. Yeah, you might be able to cleanse the magical part of it maybe, but can you unfray that trust? Can you really put the genie back in the bottle once someone has betrayed a friend for, say, more power? The simple sort of binary fix cast the spell, job done, it just dissolves. Think about how the party dynamics shift when something like that is hanging over them. One character might be wrestling with this huge guilt, right? Another's eaten up by suspicion, and maybe a third sees an opportunity. Conflict just blooms. Suddenly the curse is testing loyalty, identity, not just how good you are in a fight. Who's going to help carry this awful burden? Who's going to judge? And maybe, even more unsettling, who's going to try and exploit it?
And these things rarely wrap up neatly, do they? A moral curse seems like it resists that tidy ending. It stretches out, becomes part of a whole campaign arc, maybe spins off personal quests, forges weird alliances. The line between curse and quest just evaporates, leaving the players tangled up in a story that asks more than just, did you win? It's always asking, who are you becoming? It almost feels like the character's personal story becomes the campaign, or a huge chunk of it anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, the real power isn't just the initial shock. It's the unpredictable way it reveals itself, slowly kind of corroding the character from the inside out, forcing them into harder and harder choices.
That whole idea of a persistent character-defining problem really makes me think about how you'd even start designing something like that. It sounds like it needs a really delicate touch, like a sculptor's hand almost.
Yeah.
What are the key things you need to bake in to make an ethical dilemma really land?
It definitely does take care. First off, the curse itself has to demand more than just putting up with pain or inconvenience. It needs to linger. It needs to force choices that have real, lasting consequences. You really want to start with stakes that connect directly to the character's own history, maybe their relationships or their deepest values. Find what truly matters to that specific character. Is it loyalty, ambition, their faith, maybe a deep-seated fear? And then make the curse poke right at that nerve.
So no easy outs, no simple fetch quest to make it all go away.
Exactly. You absolutely have to avoid easy solutions. They just cheapen the whole thing. If, running a simple errand or doing a quick ritual fixes it, it never really gets under the skin. It never pushes the player into genuinely dangerous territory. Complications flourish in ambiguity. You need to let the solution feel murky, knotted, maybe even contradictory. Introduce that gray area. Is breaking this curse really worth the cost it demands? And that's why tying the curse to personal flaws or unresolved stuff from their past works so well, like the examples from the source. The necromancer, marked by a vengeful spirit, they can only stop the decay if they truly let go of their thirst for forbidden secrets. Or the fighter with the ancestral burden. Okay, their wounds heal super fast, but every fight burns away memories of their ancestors. What's left when glory costs you your identity? These aren't just debuffs, they're like mini existential crises.
I love that idea of a slow simmer for these curses. It's not about the big bang right away, but that insidious spread. How do you, as the DM, actually pace that?
You let them fester. You layer things on. Symptoms, side effects. Moments where the curse pops up in new, maybe unexpected ways. Maybe it's an outburst at a friend, something totally out of character. Or perhaps it's a nightmare that hints at the worst possible future, making the player really dread what might be coming. You can even, misdirect a little. Maybe the real nasty part of the curse is hidden, only surfacing after trust is already strained. Or sometimes, the curse just pounces like a plot twist. An artifact the sorcerer got as a reward slowly starts messing with their empathy, muting their feelings. By the time they figure it out, they've already made choices that cut deep. From there, the only way out is genuinely through. It's all about building that tension, that creeping dread, bit by bit.
And the source material gives us some really great, thought-provoking examples. You mentioned the Rogue's Blade, but what are some others that really make you pause?
Well, the key is always making the choices agonizing. Like, you brought up the ring that heals by hurting others. That's a classic, right? Imagine. A ring heals your wounds, but inflicts the exact same pain on someone nearby. Every single time. Talk about a brutal choice. That's not a healing potion, it's a moral test.
Or what about eyes that let you see through lies, but they blind you to acts of kindness? That's such a clever twist on truth. You get the raw truth, but you lose the ability to see goodness or empathy. It really makes you ask, what's the real cost of seeing all the truth?
And the curse of the shifting face. Every time the character tells a lie, their face changes, physically stealing a part of their original identity. I mean, that's just deliciously cruel in its implications. The magic, the real power of these curses, it lies in the choice. The more agonizing you make that decision for the player, the sharper and more profound the character development becomes. It's about making them own those choices, even the really uncomfortable ones.
Okay, so once you've crafted this fantastic, morally thorny curse, how do you actually weave it into the day-to-day story of a campaign? Where do you even start?
It really begins with where it came from, its origin story. Was it like a punishment from a god they slighted, the consequence of some ancient broken pact maybe, or perhaps just the cold touch of a restless ghost who doesn't care about mortal feelings? You want to tie the curse's birth to the campaign world's deeper stuff, its history, its myths, its big betrayals, its legacies. If it feels like it belongs in the world, it feels much more impactful to the player.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just some random magical zap. It's tied to the world's history. But then how does the world react? Do people notice this living curse walking around?
Oh, the world rarely stays quiet about something like that. Allies might start pulling back, maybe out of fear. They see the danger clinging to the cursed person. Rivals. They might sniff out an opportunity in this perceived weakness. The city priests could brand the whole party as blasphemers. Or maybe a hidden cult, one that wants that cursed power for itself, starts stirring things up. You let the curse send ripples through the campaign, making it evolve as the players make decisions. If the group starts sacrificing innocents to, say, feed a vampiric blade, well, word gets around. Hunters or would-be heroes might start coming after them. But if, say, the paladin chokes back their hatred and offers forgiveness to an old enemy, maybe their curse twists in response, granting something unexpected or posing a new kind of challenge.
So connecting that to the big picture, think about the Betrayer's Blade from the source material. Grants power for treachery, tied to some famous assassin's weapon, and now it's maybe in the party's hands. How does that change the game? Suddenly, every conversation, every fight, it carries this extra weight. The choice isn't just if you use the blade, but kind of how it ends up using you, right?
Exactly. Or think about the Wings of Blight. You get freedom, you can fly, but it comes at the cost of the land's health below you. That's a heavy burden. Most good curses refuse to stay static. As the party shifts course, the curse adapts. It might escalate, or it might ease up. Sometimes it gets harsher, demands bigger sacrifices. Other times, a single act compassion, maybe resolve, or even cruelty, can turn the whole campaign sideways. That unpredictability, that really sparks player investment, because they feel their choices are directly shaping the nature of their own affliction.
It sounds like these moral curses almost become like hard mode for character growth. They force a deeper kind of engagement than just, leveling up your stats.
They absolutely do, yeah. Some characters actually stumble into greatness because a moral curse kind of snaps their spine straight, forces them to confront things. Imagine the paladin. Maybe their powers are flickering, and they're standing at the grave of an enemy they hated, feeling half empty, half terrified, wondering who they'll even be if they let forgiveness sink in. True heroes often get carved out of those who refuse to bend their core values under that pressure. But on the flip side, others descend. Maybe a bard gets seduced by an artifact's whispers, selling bits of soul for perfect music, until their performance and their actual self just unravel together. It strips away the pretense. Resisting demands sacrifice, insight, and often real loss. A curse might force a wizard to pick between magic and memory, or require a fighter to finally abandon vengeance. Instead of shutting down the story, the curse cracks it wide open. Every slip-up, every tiny victory, it really matters because the character's identity is right there on the line.
And these stories must work best when they're woven into the existing relationships, right? Friendships, rivalries, potential betrayals. Like the example of the party healer drawing poison from wounds but aging a year each time. That's intense. Will their friends try to shield them? Or will they let the poison stay to save the healer's years? Or a rogue who has to confess one crime every single day, risking exposure constantly. The game is basically finding the player's strength and then asking, what price will you pay to keep it?
Yeah.
What other character-focused arcs from the source really stand out for that kind of personal hit?
Well, the sorcerer gaining magic but sacrificing a memory each time, slowly becoming empty.
Yeah.
It's pretty chilling. What does that actually do to someone's identity when their whole personal history is just eroding away for power?
That's a huge challenge, especially for a character maybe built on their past. And what about a bard who physically cannot tell a lie, and if they get caught in one, they lose their voice for a whole day? That's a massive challenge for a performer, someone whose whole deal is communication, maybe even, embellishment sometimes. How do they even navigate social situations or perform?
Exactly. These really force the player to think hard about who their character is deep down and how far they're willing to stray from that core. And this is why it's so important to stress having real stakes, but also consent. You really should collaborate with the player before you root a big moral curse deep into their character's story. Nothing hits harder than choices that genuinely matter, where the cost is right there, clear as day, and the consequences echo through the whole world.
It really seems like balancing the weight of those consequences is a delicate art for the DM, doesn't it? How do you make sure it feels like a challenge, something meaningful, and not just cruel punishment?
It's a very fine line, yeah. You walk between challenge and cruelty very carefully. Too much punishment, players just check out, they get resentful or just frustrated. But too little, and the curse loses its punch. Feels kind of toothless. You can use the curse's rhythm to help. Maybe short moments of pain, followed by times for reflection or a bit of a breather. Then raise the stakes again. Vary the pace. Let players really dig into the meaning behind the curse. Plant some small wins along the way. A helpful clue, maybe a friend steps up. An unexpected crack appears in the curse's logic. Every gain should probably cost something. Trust, maybe time, maybe a sliver of hope. But allow time for the burden to actually settle in, to grow, and to change the character in an organic way. It's about designing a narrative arc, not just sticking them in a penalty box.
And when it comes down to resolving it, you absolutely have to offer more than just one path outright to avoid making the player feel railroaded.
Precisely. Yeah, moral curses with only one possible ending. That risks railroading, which, like you said, is just never fun for anyone. Instead, you plant seeds for multiple outcomes. Maybe good, maybe tragic, maybe something more mysterious. Bearings get lost, then rediscovered, and choice always stays right at the heart of it. And here's a really critical point. Not every curse has to be broken with magic words. Sometimes the curse just evolves. It warps into just another facet of who the character is now. The paladin who learns to forgive. Maybe they create a whole new code for themselves. The sorcerer who gave up memories for power. Maybe they find a new kind of meaning in that emptiness. For some, the curse genuinely becomes their legacy, something that outlasts the campaign itself. Resolution should tie tightly into the themes and the choices made, not just convenience. Heroes might earn redemption. Others might fall. Some might find a kind of bittersweet peace, while others are remembered for the scars they carried to the end.
So what does this all mean for DMs wanting to try this out? The source gives some great resolution options. What are a couple of your favorites, and why do they feel right?
I quite like the idea of an epic atonement quest, where the character has to actively go out and repair the damage caused by the curse's origin or their actions under it. It forces them to confront their past choices and literally work to fix things. That feels earned.
Or maybe a big sacrificial act, where they give up something incredibly precious, maybe even the cursed item itself, to save someone else that has huge emotional weight. Or maybe making peace with a sworn enemy, ending generations of conflict as the ultimate way to release the curse's hold. And sometimes, like you said, a character might just choose to live with the curse, finding pride or transformation within that struggle. That feels like a really courageous character arc.
What's really crucial, I think, is that a powerful curse shouldn't just fizzle out anticlimactically or be waved away by the DM. You want it to end in a crescendo. Really hard choices, lasting changes, memories that get burned into the party's collective story. The player should feel the full weight of their journey, even if the resolution isn't a simple poof, it's gone cure.
Ultimately, these moral dilemma curses really do kind of invert the usual D&D logic, don't they? They ask who characters are, not just what they can do. They turn every decision into this nagging question, am I still myself? Is this price worth it? These are the kinds of stories that really etch themselves into your memory. They forge legends out of agony and hope and just the profound courage it takes to make a choice. They can really transform your table into a deeper, more introspective place.
And yeah, connecting this to the bigger picture, the very best curses aren't just punishments, they are crucibles, they're tests by fire. And from those fires, true heroes, and sometimes, yeah, really compelling villains emerge. And always remember, it's got to be about collaboration and consent with your players at the table. Never use these just to be mean, but always aim for profound narrative and character growth.
The best curses, they feel like they bend fate itself. They leave questions lingering long after the campaign ends, stories people retell under flickering candles, proof that every single moral trial really matters. Now, this whole deep dive wouldn't have been nearly as insightful without the fantastic work over at LitRPG Reads, especially from Heidi Zhang. And also a shout out to Paul Bello, a fine fellow indeed. We would absolutely love to hear from you listening. Kick back, relax, and share your favorite ethical curses you've encountered or run, and those memorable character dilemmas down in the comments.